Let's talk about this hiring crisis. The hiring crisis is real. My mom's visiting me right now, and she hires. She's a CEO of a nonprofit, and she spent thousands of dollars trying to hire people, and she just cannot fill positions. And she's like, it's just a waste of money right now. We're just not getting qualified candidates. We're not getting anyone. So, the Senate just passed the $1 trillion stimulus package yesterday, which President Biden says will provide great high-paying union jobs. And this is going to put America back to work. That's great. We'll see how many of these will be government jobs. We'll have to wait and see. So we'll keep them on the clock on this. But right now we've got 10 million unemployed Americans, or 10 million job openings right now. 10.1 million job openings. This is a record. I want you to look at this graph here. Look at this graph. So you see the unemployed there, obviously in March of 2020, right? Skyrocketed. Then slowly started going down. And then you see the job openings. And what this shows is that these businesses, they're ramping up hiring as much as they can. They're trying to hire, profits are going up at these corporations. Bottom line, if you watch Wall Street data, you're just seeing these companies that are just borrowing money from the federal government hand over fist because of cheap interest rates, right? And the problem is the Federal Reserve continues to loan these businesses money for 0% interest, essentially. So what they're doing with this money is they are basically buying their own shares back. They're then trying to hire, and they're expanding they're becoming way more profitable. Wall Street businesses right now, just huge profits, right? And the problem is that Americans are saying, wait a second, I don't want to go to work at these companies that they're going to screw me over. That's exactly what's happening. And they have other opportunities. Harvard just did a study about these overworked, always-on employees, and it's not good. The data in this new study is pretty awful. And you have all of these workers right now who are just burned out. Add that to the new job vacancy data, and we have a job crisis in this country. First, let's look at the new job data. The worker shortage, as I pointed out here, 10.1 million. And according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, these job openings are a new record. At the end of June, this is by far the record amount of job openings the economy has ever had. This historically elevated level makes clear that we have a severe worker shortage that threatens what should be a prolonged economic boom. So the 10.1 million job openings is 590,000 more than in May, which was then an all-time record. And the growth is picking up for these businesses. They've added 3.3 million openings since the beginning of 2021, right? Their profits are off the charts, and they're trying to grow. Right? They can't keep up with demand. The demand for their products and services is off the charts. Great. Here's an idea. Why don't you pay or increase the salaries so you can fill these job openings? There's an idea. Look at this from Dan Price. A frustrated friend who recruits for a retail chain just called me. She told me her employer said she could pay a max of $19 an hour if she promoted someone internally, but could pay up to $30 an hour hiring from outside.
If that's not completely backward.
Right. He says, if you think this is moronic, you are absolutely not wrong. I should have mentioned that these are retail management positions that she recruits for. Can you see the problem here? So if you promote from within, you can only pay them $19 an hour.
Is that because the $30 an hour employee that gets hired signs an NDA not to disclose their income to the other employees? And if they do it internally, they can't have that, or what?
Maybe. I don't know why that. Why the disparity? I guess you could probably think about. Let me know in the chat. Why do you think the disparity there? I have a few ideas. It's always cheaper to promote within. That's how it always is. It's costs more to go out and get employees and pay them at a salary. So internally now they know they're making 15. If they promote them to 19, they should be happy. Just shut up and take it. Right?
Well,
but other people are like, I'm not moving to this country. I'm not going to work in this company. like for $19 an hour. Like these guys are overworked and underpaid. I'll work for you for $30 an hour. Sure, you're hired.
Well, and why wouldn't you reward good employees? Like if you have the ability to pay that, then pay that and reward them. They'll work harder.
Imagine, and retail is being crushed, as Dan says here. Should have mentioned that these are retail management positions.
Could you imagine if somebody like was getting $19 an hour, they're struggling, they're barely getting by, and then their employer's like, you know what? We have a position, you're already in management, we're going to pay you $30 an hour. That would drastically change that person's life.
Yeah. Like doubling their salary?
Yeah.
I mean, that's like what we talked about Dan Price, the guy at the Seattle company who basically walked into his employees and said, you know what, I know you're making $35,000 a year. I'm now making a minimum salary for you of $70,000 a year. Thank you. And I'm reducing my salary. These companies are making, we saw record profits, and yet you continue to pay people like crap, right, at retail establishments. Record number of people going in and picking up, burgers and fries. Their corporate profits are through the roof.
Could you imagine how many people cried the day that Dan Price did that?
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's videos of him when he made that announcement in the room and people are like freaking out. And then he's going on the Kelly Clarkson show with some of his employees. Like the Kelly Clarkson invited him along with some of his employees and they talked and they were crying. They're like, it just changed my life. We were able to buy a house. We were able to get married. I have a good 401k. I have good retirement now. He changed our life. So he went from taking a 33 times the amount he was making as CEO and reduced it down to almost four times what the lowest paid employee was in the company. Imagine that. So you wonder why we have 10 million people that can't fill these jobs? Because Americans are sitting back saying, wait a second, I don't want to work for companies that walk on us anymore. And I love this Chamber of Commerce piece, by the way. This is such garbage. I just laughed out loud when I read this, right? So this is the Chamber of Commerce. Let's see, where is that piece? Yeah, so this is the Chamber of Commerce article, okay? Here's how they phrase it, right? Because they don't want people to make more money, They're against, the increasing the minimum wage. So buried in this piece in the Chamber of Commerce, it says this: the biggest problem is getting workers to fill the historically large amount of open jobs. Workers are staying on the sidelines because of too generous government benefits.
Whatever.
Fears about the virus, lack of childcare, and other factors. I love how lack of childcare and other factors. By the way, childcare is arguably way more important than the government benefits piece or fears of the virus. These people don't have childcare, so they're staying home because the schools aren't open, and they had to stay home. The nursery schools or daycares, et cetera, weren't open.
Childcare and daycares are basically another mortgage payment in some instances.
Exactly. So imagine paying them more so they could afford that to put their child in a daycare while they go and provide for their families and other factors. I love this. But here's my favorite is the last two sentences. This is the top issue in the economy right now. The enormous number of job openings is holding the economy back from reaching its potential. Really? How about this? Companies not paying fair wages to employees is holding the economy back from reaching its potential. Why don't we flip that sentence around?
Well, and not only the economy, you're holding people back from reaching their full potential. Could you imagine, like, if you had to wake up every single day and go to a job that you were barely getting by on, how much stress you would feel? And if you could relieve that stress even a little bit, like if you could double somebody's wage like Dan Price did and you change somebody's life, the energy that they would have coming in, they would sleep better, they would eat better, they would just live better lives, they would not have stress, and just like people just have this mountain of stress on them every single day because they're barely making it in the richest country in the world.
Yeah.
How bad is Dan Price's lifestyle right now? Like, is he living in a hovel? Like, is he driving a Fiat?
As CEO now, look at the guy. Like, he can't even get a haircut. Look at his Twitter profile. My God, the guy must be struggling. He
does look like a tree hugger.
Like he can't even get a shave, and he can't even cut his hair. This guy,
wow,
hippie, taking care of your employees.
Socialist,
you socialist punk. I mean, and so, will the president, part of this infrastructure and investment package is supposed to be providing great union jobs. The president talked about this yesterday specifically. He said, we're passing this. This is going to be bringing high-paying union jobs as a part of this infrastructure package. Okay. Well, by the way, it's only passed the Senate, so it still hasn't passed the House of Representatives. They're on break. It likely won't be taken up until the end of August. That's the timeline on this. So we'll see. And I'm curious to see how many companies, private companies, will be getting incentives from the government to hire. Like, I want to say this, why do we need to give companies incentives to hire people right now? They have the incentive is Americans would go and work for you if you paid better wages. Bottom line, if you allowed unionization in these businesses, pressure from the government to say, hey, Amazon, pay your employees better. Don't make them pee in bottles. Allow them to unionize.
Well, and think about this too. If you're out there and you know your expenses, you've got a lot of people right now that are way behind on their rent. They're behind probably on their car payments. They're behind on everything. And if you're looking at a job that's not even going to help get you out of that mess, it's just going to, you're basically going to be working for food and whatever you can afford to take care of out of that miserable check you're going to get every week. Why would you want that job? Why would you want to put yourself in a position that you can't even afford gas to get to a job that's not even going to help you get out of debt?
Yeah, like this story in Forbes this morning. The hiring crisis explained. Over 50,000 of hospitality workers wouldn't return to their old jobs for any reason. Why do you think that is? Why do you think that is? They're paid like garbage.
$2.13 an hour?
$2.13 an hour. I mean, if you work at McDonald's or whatever, you're making a little bit more than minimum wage, on your feet all day. Terrible working conditions. I mean, well, not terrible working conditions. I mean, I actually worked at McDonald's, and but I mean, benefits. No, can I get benefits? Can I have advancement that's going to push me up the ladder? No. But you know where you can get advancement? Not private companies, apparently. Because, they're not, this is the exact story here. They're not going to promote you. When they promote you from within, you're going to only get a small raise. But when you get hired from outside, they'll pay you $30 an hour. Well, guess what? The government pays well. Yeah, that's right. The government pays well. So we now know that the biggest area in the economy where jobs are actually growing is in government jobs, not private companies. Why? It's because the government pays well.
And benefits.
And it has an endless money supply, apparently. I've done videos here where I talk about the U.S. dollar. I literally, right before the show, I saw news on the U.S. dollar continuing to spiral down a black hole because we are so in debt. We continue to borrow. We continue to funnel money to these companies who aren't hiring and paying better wages so they actually can fill these jobs. And then the U.S. government is expanding, right? And they're hiring. So they have built-in benefits. They have good pay as a government job, and they have built-in pay raises when you're in the government job, right? And the big private companies still haven't learned their lessons. They haven't. Just like that Dan Price tweet talking about, hey, we'll promote you from within. Well, only $14 an hour or $19 instead of the $20. But here's the thing. Here's what Richard Wolff, he's a great economist. He was on the Breaking Point show, and he had this to say about these government jobs and why this is such a problem. And just a ticking time bomb. Listen to Richard Wolff.
A huge proportion of the improved job situation is public sector jobs, jobs working for the government, not for the private sector. If you look at private sector employment, the news from last month is anything but wonderful or exciting, because what it shows, and this is perhaps the key insight of these numbers, is that this is an economy more dependent on life support from the government than it has ever been. I mean, we live at a time where corporations are in debt to the government more than ever before, where the government is in debt to both other governments and corporations and people more than ever before, and where households are living on more debt than ever before. This creates an economy held up in the end by the Federal Reserve, kept alive by the government, which ironically the private sector likes to bash, but upon which that sector now depends.
Love that guy. Absolutely right. So we've got a government that's propping up through the Federal Reserve money to Wall Street at record low interest rates, right? They're massively in debt to Wall Street. Wall Street just, or Wall Street continues to borrow money like crazy. And what are they doing? They're not paying their employees better. No. They're continuing to buy back shares of their companies, sitting on massive debt, not investing it in research and development when like they should be.
Well, how come we never hear anything about the Treasury anymore? Because the Federal Reserve, a lot of people don't even realize, is a private bank. It's not even a federal, like it's as federal as Federal Express. Mm-hmm. It is not a government-owned bank. So what happened to the Treasury? Like the Treasury was supposed to be in charge of the money.
Well, the Treasury this week, of course, came out, and Janet Yellen, and it's sort of a mystery right now. Among the, my reporter friends, as we're looking at this, we're like, why? There's like some mixed messages coming out of the White House here. Like the Treasury has kind of been out in front on some of these issues, almost as if the White House is not stepping in. They're allowing Treasury to make comments about raising the debt ceiling. Like, where's President Biden?
They're letting the CDC push for rent moratoriums. Like, what is going on?
Right. So the Treasury Department, of course, wants the debt ceiling raised because they want to be able to make sure we don't default on the money we've already borrowed from all these other countries. We have to pay, and companies and U.S. and Wall Street we need to pay that stuff back. We can't do that, then people lose their faith in the U.S. dollar as a reserve currency of the world. So, I mean, this is a ticking time bomb. I published a video the other day. Someone said, "Oh man, this is all fear." I'm like, okay, $28 trillion in debt. And companies that are massively in debt also. And a government that's expanding and paying employees better than private companies. And there's 10 million job openings across the United States. You don't think this is a ticking time bomb? Okay. Fine. Nothing to see here then, I guess.
And relying on a dollar that's propped up only by oil. If the oil wasn't traded in the dollar, we would have no dollar right now.
Yeah, it's a debt economy. It's not backed by anything. It's not backed by gold. It is nothing right now. And, it's really, really troubling. So this hiring crisis, I wanted to put it through this lens because, when you have these reports by like the Chamber of Commerce basically saying that, it's just it's just these jobless benefits. It's keeping people home. No, it's you're not paying people well enough. You're not paying people the right wages. If they actually made the money, they would be hired. If they, like we've reported over the past couple of days, these companies who've actually spent money on their employees and increased their wages significantly and given them reasons to stay on board and paid for their college expenses and benefits and expanding 401k, all of those things, guess what? They're able to fill those positions. So, hey, you cheap bastards, you want to continue to not pay people, this is what's going to happen. Thanks for subscribing to the channel. You can also become a channel member by going to morninginvest.com/join, where you can stick it to the mainstream media and support independent journalism. We're able to bring you the stories that you won't see on any of the major billionaire-backed networks. Thanks so much. We'll see you next time, everyone.